This is the Louie T Network.
In the lab room.
Welcome, you are in the lab room. I'm your host, Lou. Thank you for joining me today. On this program, it's Monday, a lot to get to, a lot of action to cover. Let's get straight to business today. We start in Atlanta. Rams traveling to Atlanta to take on the Atlanta Falcons and one of their old chums in Steven Jackson. Look, you can't go on the road and give up 21 points right off the bat. You can't dig yourself a hole. You can't turn the football over. And that's what the St. Louis Rams did. That leads us straight into our momentous moment of this football game. And look, you get down 14-0 and you're looking, you're digging, you're searching for some kind of spark to get you back in this football game. You're driving the football down the field and Sam Bradford drops back, tries to dump it off to Daryl Richardson in the flats, tips off his fingers as he gets hit right into the waiting arms of O.C. Umenyiora, who dashes 60 yards into the end zone unabated for a touchdown, takes this lead to 21-0. And at that point, this game was essentially over. But the Rams did not quit. And that's one thing I can say about them. And that's a testament to Jeff Fisher and his coaching staff. This team in the past would have packed it in and lost this football game 38-13. But that's not what this Rams team is about. They stuck with it. They hung in. They hung tough. They scored 14 unanswered points in this game to cut the lead to 24-17 before the Falcons were able to run away with a game-sealing touchdown to win this one 31-24. But I will say this. The Rams hung in, gave themselves a chance, and there are no consolation prizes in the National Football League. Either you win or you lose, but in their defense, they came out and they hung tough with the Atlanta Falcons after digging themselves a hole. And something must be said about the grit, heart, and toughness that this team showed, being down by 21 on the road, staring adversity in the face, and really giving it a go in this football game. Now, on the flip side of that, the Atlanta Falcons started out this game very explosively. Julio Jones catches about a 77-yard touchdown. He catches the football, runs away from the defense, scores. And they just had it going early on offensively. Then you get the defensive score. Everything's looking good. This is the problem I have with the Falcons, though. And this is the problem that plagued them last season in the playoffs. You have to put teams away when you have them down big. And that was supposed to be part of bringing Steven Jackson onto this football team. Now, he got hurt in this game, and so that kind of took that element away. But you got to be able to put teams away. You got to be able to step on a team's throat. You got them down, crush the trachea, okay? Squash it. Squash their larynx. They don't do that. They allow teams to hang around, much like the Houston Texans. Both of these teams are eerily similar to me. Very explosive offenses when they're clicking on all cylinders. But the problem is they don't know how to finish teams. Finish them. They don't do it. They don't put teams away when they have opportunities. They didn't put Seattle away in the divisional round last year in the postseason. It almost cost them. They didn't put San Francisco away when they had an opportunity. It did cost them. It sent them home earlier than they anticipated. Falcons go home. 49ers go on to the Super Bowl. You got to put teams away. They did not put the Rams away in this game. They got lucky. They won the game. They finished them off later on in the game, and they had to sweat for it. But if this Rams team was someone else, like the Packers, this is a loss because the Packers would have come all the way back and won this game. And so the Falcons have to find a way to finish. They got to get that killer instinct. And right now, they do not have it. This looks too much like last year. And even though you won and you went to 1-1 on the season, that's still some cause for concern if you're a Falcons fan, because you got to put teams away when you have them down. You got to get them out as well. And the Falcons aren't doing that right now. But they get the win. They go to 1-1. Rams lose this football game, drop to 1-1 on the season. You go on to the next game. This was an ugly matchup. And I didn't expect this game to be the way that it was. This was my sole survivor pick of the weekend. I'm talking about the Baltimore Ravens hosting the Cleveland Browns. Look, I thought the Ravens would come out with a lot of intensity. They're getting their Super Bowl rings. It's the home opener. They're mad. They're foaming at the mouth. They were embarrassed on Thursday Night Football in a game that should have been a home matchup for them. Instead, they go on the road against probably one of the better teams in the National Football League, the Denver Broncos. They give up 7 touchdowns passing to Peyton Manning. They were mad. And I expected them to take it out on the Cleveland Browns. Yes, this is family business, and games within the family are normally close, but I did not expect them to struggle the way they did with Cleveland. In the Ravens' defense, I will say this Browns team is really good defensively. And I realized that watching this game, I love what I see out of this Browns defense. And they stop the run. They're getting pressure on the quarterback. Maybe not as much as I would like. They could probably upgrade the amount of pressure that they're getting right now. Look, Barkevious Mingo comes back and he gets a sack in this game. If you could get Paul Kruger to start getting consistent pressure and get some of these other guys that you paid money to in the offseason, Quentin Groves, and some of these other guys to get pressure on the quarterback, then maybe you'll be fine in that department. But this team stops the run, and they play some bang-up coverage in the secondary. Joe Hayden played some really good football in this game. And so it take nothing away from the Cleveland Browns. Their offense simply is not ready yet because they're not whole. And I know I'm putting a lot of stock into Josh Gordon, but I feel like this Cleveland Browns offense is very talented. Look, Jordan Cameron is a mismatch nightmare for most football teams. He had another strong game against the Ravens, and he's played well in both games to this point. He's a difference maker on the offensive side of the football. You stick Josh Gordon out there. You sprinkle in a little bit of Greg Little. You sprinkle in a little bit of Travis Benjamin, and you've got a dangerous offense. Trent Richardson is a bruising back. He can catch it out of the backfield. They have all of the weapons necessary to do some dynamic things on the offensive side of the football. They just need that one playmaker to bust this thing wide open, and that's where Josh Gordon comes into play. He did not play in this game. They only were able to muster 6 points. I expect them to be better offensively once he comes back. He'll be back in this next football game. I want to see how this offense evolves once he comes back into the fold. Now the question is, how is Brandon Weeden? What is the status of Brandon Weeden? He left this game early and did not return in the fourth quarter. And so want to know what the status is on Brandon Weeden, and will he be able to play in this upcoming game? But in this particular game versus the Ravens, the offense was non-existent for the Cleveland Browns. They weren't able to sustain offense. They didn't do enough to put pressure on this Ravens team. Even though the Ravens weren't doing anything offensively themselves, the Browns had opportunities. They blew them. And that takes us to our momentous moment of this football game. Brandon Weeden had Chris Ogbonnaya wide open down the sideline. He hits this guy in stride. He walks into the end zone. And we're talking about a 70-yard touchdown pass in the making. He overthrows him, overshoots him, and it's an incomplete pass. And those are the type of plays you have to take advantage of. Those are the plays that Weeden didn't take advantage of last season, and he didn't take advantage of it in this game. And those are the ones that come back to haunt you, especially when you lose a game 14-6. Points come at a premium. You got to get them when they're there to be had. He missed an opportunity. That, to me, was a turning point in this football game. And let's look at it from the Ravens' perspective. This Ravens team, I've seen something in this game that I kind of knew going into the season, but it's been confirmed for me. This team lacks explosiveness on the offensive side of football. I like what Brown is doing. I like how he's emerging as a number 2 option. I do not think, and I didn't think before, I wasn't sure. I was like, maybe he could evolve. I don't think Torrey Smith is the number 1. I didn't think so from the jump. I don't think so now. Haven't seen anything that's evident that this guy is a number 1. They don't have enough explosiveness. Brandon Stokely has been their most consistent receiver on the offensive side of the football, and that's a problem. When 87-year-old Brandon Stokely is the best you have to offer at receiver in terms of consistency, that's a problem. And that's the problem right now with this Ravens team, is that they lack explosiveness. You don't feel any sense of urgency from this Ravens offense when you're a defense facing them. You don't feel like at any time they could strike. And yes, Torrey Smith can strike you if you're not paying attention, but right now this team doesn't scare you offensively. And Ray Rice goes down with a hip flexor. That's what they're calling it. But anytime it's a hip, I get nervous. And so hip flexor or not, hip strain or whatever it is, that's a problem. That's one less weapon for this offense, and they're struggling offensively. This defense looks like they're getting better. But again, this is the Cleveland Browns we're talking about. They didn't look all that good against Peyton Manning last week, but then again, who does? But at the end of the day, they got the victory. They go to 1-1 on the season. They win 14-6. It wasn't pretty, but at the end of the day, it's a W. But I'm telling you right now, I do not like what I see from this Baltimore Ravens football team. They struggled in a game that they should have been able to win handily, and you win, but you're not as sold on this Baltimore Ravens team after this game. And it's kind of hard to say that after they win. But you feel less about this Ravens team after a win than you did about them after a loss. Or I can't speak for you. I know I feel lesser about the Ravens than I did coming after that loss. So we'll see if the Ravens can improve as this season wears on. But right now, you've got injuries to guys in key positions offensively. Guys aren't coming back offensively. And this turnover on this roster, especially on the offensive side of the football, looks like it's going to take its toll on this Ravens football team. You look at the next matchup. This was a good football game. Panthers traveling to Buffalo to take on the Bills in what is an instant classic right now in this early 2013 regular season. Look, the Panthers did some good things in this game. I talked about the Panthers needing to score points, needing to open it up offensively. You get contributions from Ted Ginn. You finally get Greg Olsen to wake up. Steve Smith is doing his thing. Cam Newton is escaping the pocket and extending plays. And so I saw read option. I got a little bit of that. So I was pleased with what I saw offensively from this Panthers team. And just scored 23 points. On most weekends, that's going to be enough to win. But the problem right now in Carolina is that you don't know how to finish off games. And when Ron Rivera gets fired, it will be because you couldn't finish off games. And notice I said when, not if, because he is going to get fired because you're not going to win enough games. And he's going to lose too many close games, and he's going to get fired because of it. And this was another one of those football games that you should have won. You played well enough to win. You should have won. And you didn't. And credit must be given to this Buffalo Bills defense. We can sit here and talk about all the mistakes the Panthers made, including the momentous moment of this game, and we'll get to that a little bit later. But credit must be given where it is due. This Bills football team is surprising right now, okay? And there's not many people that can say they expected this Bills defense to be as good as it is. That's probably what surprises me the most. I'm surprised at EJ Manuel's performance and how good he's playing right now, but this defense has been playing really good football, and that, to me, is the biggest surprise. They held down the Patriots, which right now is starting to look less and less like an accomplishment and feat as the weeks go by because the Patriots are lacking on the offensive side of football, but it doesn't matter. They still were able to hold them down. And then they get after Cam Newton. They make him uncomfortable. They force turnovers. They pick him off. They force fumbles. And look, Kiko Alonso is everywhere. Everywhere. Look, he's right there. Look, he's over there. Look, he's back there. Kiko Alonso is everywhere. And in this particular game, Super Mario was everywhere. You know how Mario gets the mushroom and he gets bigger? Well, after he got the mushroom, he got a flower and he started spitting fire on this offensive line of the Carolina Panthers. They could not block Mario in this game, and he was lighting them up to the tune of 4.5 sacks. Now, that's a grown man's game right there. And they could not do anything with Mario Williams in this game. And they were getting consistent pressure on Cam Newton, harassing him all day, forcing errant throws. There were a couple of times where guys were streaking down the field wide open and Cam just flat out missed. And a lot of that had to do with pressure. Now, you get opportunities in this league, and I say it all the time. Guys don't run free often. You get them open. They get 2 steps or 3 steps on a defender. You got to hit them. And Cam didn't do that in this game, but it doesn't matter. At the end of the day, the Bills played well on defense, and E.J. Manuel looks like an NFL caliber quarterback. My goodness, I really underestimated the abilities of E.J. Manuel. I grossly underestimated his ability to get it done at this level. Because I'll be the first to stand in line and say, I was wrong about E.J. Manuel. If he continues to play the way he's playing, I'm going to have to give this man what he deserves. And that is one of my deepest apologies, because he's playing really well as a rookie, something that I didn't think he'd be able to do. And he's winning me over each and every single week. And so his play combined with this Bills defense, what can you do? I mean, the Bills played well enough to win, and the Panthers made some mistakes, including our momentous moment, which was the back-breaking moment in this game for the Carolina Panthers. Look, you got this game won. You've got a backup safety in the game, Jones, who picks off a pass to end this football game, and you get pass interference on Luke Kuechly. It extends the drive. Bills don't have any timeouts. Time is winding down. Then you allow him to rush for about 8 or 9 yards down to your 2-yard line, have both of your corners converge on a slant route on the very next play, leaving the corner route open, wide open for Stevie Johnson to catch the game-winning touchdown. They tack on the extra point and win this football game 24-23. Look, this Panthers team isn't finishing. Last week, you needed 1 stop. And this is how defenses are gauged. And this Panthers defense has played really well up until this point this year, but they're not getting key stops. And that's how you're measured as a defense. Same way on offense. Can you get it done in the clutch? Same thing on defense. Can you get the stop that wins you the game or gives your offense a chance to win at the end? Last week, you needed a stop. 1 stop to get the football back. After that back-breaking D'Angelo Williams fumble, you needed 1 stop to get the football back from Seattle to give yourself a chance to win that game. Instead, you let the Seahawks run their 4-minute offense. You don't get the football back. You lose that football game. You go to next week, you need 1 stop. They don't need a field goal here. They need a touchdown to beat you. So you're playing with the full field in front of you. So all you need to do, and mind you, the Bills don't have any timeouts. So you take away the sidelines, you keep everything in front of you, and you make the Bills beat you the hard way. Instead, you give up a PI, you cut the field in half, they get down to the 11, they run, you let them get out of bounds, and then you let them score a touchdown with your cornerbacks not being on the same page, both converging on the in-breaking route, leaving the out-breaking route wide open. Touchdown, you lose. E.J. Manuel gets to cry, and you go home and cry. As he cries in victory, you cry in defeat. Bills go to 1-1 on the season after winning 24-23. Meanwhile, the Panthers are lamenting another close loss as they drop to 0-2 on this season. You look at the next game. This game had everything in it and then some. Minnesota traveling to Soldier Field to take on the Chicago Bears in some old-fashioned family business. This game had a kickoff return, a fumble return for a touchdown, an interception return for a touchdown, big plays left and right. You name it, it happened in this football game. This game starts off with a 105-yard Cordell Patterson kickoff return for a touchdown. And just like that, the Vikings are up. But as we all know, Christian Ponder is going to have his say before it's all said and done. He throws a pick six. You get Adrian Peterson to fumble as well, and he fumbled in Chicago last year. Something about Chicago that's uneasy with Adrian Peterson. He always seems to cough it up at Soldier Field. He did it again in this game. That did not help. You look at the Bears, they weren't absolved from the turnovers in this game. Jay Cutler throws a pick in this game, and he fumbles. Jared Allen strips him, and recovered by Brian Robinson, who scoops it up and scores. And so this game had a lot of big plays, a lot of ebb and flow in this game. But when it was all said and done, the Vikings, with all their mistakes, with all the things that they had done wrong in this game, had an opportunity to put this game away. And this takes us to our momentous moment of the game. Vikings are first and goal from about the 6-yard line. Have 3 opportunities to get this thing in the end zone, and they failed to do so. Wasn't a big fan of the play calling, but I'm not here to second guess the coaching staff and what they decided to do. Whatever you call, you find a way to get the football in the end zone. They were up by 3 at this point. A touchdown puts you up 10. It's late in the fourth quarter, 2-score football game, puts this thing essentially out of reach. Instead, you only get a field goal out of this possession, and you leave the door slightly ajar for the Chicago Bears. They take full advantage. They go down the field, cap off a drive with a Martellus Bennett touchdown reception, tack on the extra point, and they steal one from the Minnesota Vikings, 31-30. This was a wild game. The Bears are living dangerously right now, though. I do not like what I see from this Bears team because they're doing a lot of the same things they did a season ago. And when that faucet runs dry, I talked about this last year, when the defense stops producing points for you, what do you do, Chicago? Because this offense is scoring points, but you're turning the football over, you're making too many mistakes, and this defense is bailing you out. What happens when you play Green Bay and they don't turn it over? When Aaron Rodgers doesn't throw a pick six, or Eddie Lacy doesn't put it on the floor and you're able to scoop it up for a touchdown and run it in? What happens when you can't make that big play defensively and you gotta just play defense and you gotta score points on your own on offense? What happens then? You gotta stop making so many mistakes and putting yourself behind the 8 ball. You got away with it last week. You were down in that football game at one point, 21-7 at home, and you got away with it. You were down in this football game and had a chance to be down by 10 points at the end, in the later stages of this game, and you got away with it. You hold them to a field goal, and you were able to come back and win this football game and salvage the victory. But how long can you continue to play this brand of football where you're teetering on the edge of defeat before you pull a victory from the jaws of defeat? Don't know how often you can do that and get away with it. But right now, you're able to call yourself 2-0. And so right now, that's all that matters. You're 2-0. You get this victory. Meanwhile, Minnesota, tough sledding after starting the season 0-2, and more importantly, 0-2 within the NFC North. 2 road losses to start the season. Vikings have a hole to dig themselves out of. Let's see how they do as they finally go home for their home opener in Week 3. We look at the next game on the slate. Houston Texans hosting the surprising 1-0 Tennessee Titans. And this was a really good football game. Tennessee had opportunities to win this game, but when you're not a football team that's ready for the show, this is what you do. And they had opportunities. I will say this about Tennessee. This defense is for real. They play good football defensively. If this offense can just start to stretch the field, to me, this offense looks eerily similar to last season. Kendall Wright, wide receiver screen. Kendall Wright, hitch. Kendall Wright, slant. Everything is 5, 10, 12 yards and in within the line of scrimmage. They need to stretch the field. You've got guys that can push the football down the field. Nate Washington can stretch the field. Kendall Wright can stretch the field. Kenny Britt can make big plays down the field. Don't be afraid to take shots down the field. Jake Locker hasn't eclipsed 200 yards passing yet this season for a reason. Because they're not taking shots down the field. And to me, it's stifling this offense right now. It's stymieing this team's ability to take that next step. If you're not going to push the ball down the field, and this defense, while it's good, it's not great. It's not good enough to hold teams down. They're not good enough to be the Kansas City Chiefs yet on defense, where they can just manage the game offensively, not take shots, and still win. They're not good enough to do that yet. If they were, then they would have won this football game. And so you look at the Texans and what they were able to accomplish in this game. I'm telling you right now, I'm not sold on the Houston Texans. This is the second game in a row they were able to win, but they won it by the skin of their teeth, and they're winning because they're taking advantage of teams who don't know how to win football games. If San Diego was a different football team, if San Diego was Denver, that's a loss. If San Diego was Kansas City, that was a loss last week. If Tennessee was Cincinnati, that was a loss this week. Because they found a way to win this game because a team couldn't close out the deal. And you look at what the Texans did in this game, they did just enough to win. But they and the Atlanta Falcons, to me, are one and the same. They don't have that killer instinct. And the Texans had opportunities to run away with this game and hide, but they didn't know how to put this Tennessee Titans team away. And they had to come from behind. Let's get to the momentous moment in this football game. And for me, it was a safety in the fourth quarter that really helped the Texans in this football game. It might have seemed minuscule at the time, but anytime you give up points in the National Football League, it's a big deal. But in this particular case, this was the Titans self-destructing. You get a nice gain on first down, Robert Turner commits a penalty. Okay, so you scoop back about 10 yards or half the distance to the goal. It's 1st and 14. It's 2nd and 14. You run another play, and you get a nice, considerable gain again. Robert Turner, penalty once again. 2nd and 21. Now you're on your own 1 yard line. And this time, you're not able to get out of your own end zone as Chris Johnson runs the football. Ball doesn't break the plane when the knee hits the ground. It's a safety. And while, again, it seemed minuscule at the time, what that safety did was it made this game a one-possession score game at the end. You take this safety out of the equation, and the Texans are down 10, and they're not able to forge this comeback. Instead, the Texans are down 8 because of this safety. They go down, they get the touchdown, they get the 2-point conversion. This game goes to overtime because the Texans cannot convert a field goal at the end of regulation. And honestly, that last possession and into overtime was dominated by the rookie sensation wide receiver out of Clemson, DeAndre Hopkins. And he took over on that last possession. He took over in overtime. He caught the game-winning touchdown. He did everything the Texans needed him to do, especially with Andre Johnson leaving the game in the latter stages. He took over in this football game. And this is what the Texans need. They need that guy opposite of Andre Johnson. That's why they drafted him. And right now, he seems to be proving to be a huge draft pick for them. And he's looking to provide this Texans team with a 1-2 punch that could put them over the top. But right now, I don't like what I see from this Texans team offensively nor defensively. But they're 2-0 nonetheless. They've gotten it done. 2 come from behind victories. But it's not in impressive fashion, but a win in the National Football League. Meanwhile, the Tennessee Titans, you're kicking yourself for this one. You had this game, and you let them off the hook. You let this one slip through your fingers. You should be 2-0. Your defense is playing really good football right now. And if not for this offense inability to stretch the field and put up more points, you probably would be 2-0 in this season. But you're not able to go down the field and put pressure on opposing defenses right now. And even though you're not doing enough offensively, I still like what I see from this Titans team. Jake Locker isn't turning the football over. That's a plus. But now he has to take that next step. He has to push the ball down the field, not be afraid to take chances, and put more points up on the scoreboard. I mean, this defense is turning teams over. They're doing enough to win week in and week out. Now it's time for this offense to keep pace and take that next step and give this team opportunities to make power moves in this AFC South division. Texans go to 2-0. Titans go to 1-1 on the season after this 30-24 overtime victory for the Houston Texans. You go on to the next game. Huge game for the Miami Dolphins as they go on the road to Indianapolis and really play a strong football game. You look at this game, it's the same exact score as it was last year, this time in favor of the Dolphins. Dolphins go into Indianapolis and they play a really good brand of football. They don't turn it over. You finally see Mike Wallace flash in this game. Ryan Tannehill, is quietly putting together a very, very good sophomore campaign to this point. No one's really talking about him and the Miami Dolphins, but they're playing good football. Brent Grimes has infused a little bit of confidence and swagger into this defense. They're forcing turnovers. Last week, Cameron Wake forced a huge turnover. Dimitri Patterson got his hands on a couple of footballs. This week, it was Brent Grimes, and he's always around the football, it seems, and he came up with a huge pick in this game. And this Miami Dolphins defense is getting it done right now. And they're playing good football, solid football on the offensive end. They actually got a contribution on the ground from Lamar Miller. He actually ran the football very strong in this game. He looks better. Still not where I think he needs to be as a back in this league, but he ran a lot better than he did in week one, which wasn't hard to do. He was horrendous in week one, but he played well in this game, helped the Dolphins secure this victory when they needed a big run. He gave it to them. He also had a rushing touchdown on a nice run, bouncing it out to the outside and getting the edge with his speed and getting into the end zone. So if they can get contributions from Lamar Miller, if Tannehill could continue to play, he went over 300 yards in this game. The Dolphins look like a team that can make some huge strides, not only in the AFC East, but in the AFC as a conference. You look at the Indianapolis Colts, and I feel like this is a team that's going to take a step back this season. And this game is one of those games where you look at it and you point to this Colts team as maybe being one of those teams that made the postseason last year. And you know how the NFL has turnover in the postseason every year, and 4 or 5 or even 6 teams that make it the year before don't make it back. I see them as one of those teams not making it back to the postseason. I don't like the way this offense is constructed under Chuck Pagano. I thought that last year, yeah, maybe they threw it a little bit too much and exposed Andrew Luck to too many hits, and they were too pass happy. But now I feel like it's the other end of the spectrum. Now I feel like they don't pass enough. They're not aggressive enough. Now I feel like on 3rd and 9, you're liable to get a screen or a check down instead of Andrew Luck pushing the football down the field. And last year, that's what they did on a regular. I mean, 1st and 10 was just as good as 3rd and 9 for a shot down the field. And it seems like this year, those shots aren't coming enough. Now, trust me, Andrew Luck is still pushing the ball down the field, but just seems like this passing game has been muzzled to some degree because Bruce Arians isn't pulling the strings. And we know how pass happy Bruce Arians is, but I think this offense is taking a step back. And I thought Ahmad Bradshaw played a strong game. I thought that T.Y. Hilton had a strong game. Kobe Fleener played well, but it just doesn't seem the same to me this year. And maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe I'm missing something. But it seems like this defense is better than it was a season ago. They've gotten a little bit more comfortable in their 3-4 defensive scheme. They've got better players. LaRon Landry upgrades their safety position. Your corners are getting comfortable after coming over in a trade last year. A guy like Vontae Davis is starting to settle in. And you went out and made some acquisitions in the offseason to bolster your front seven. This defense is better, but I don't feel like the offense is any better. And I felt last year was the other way around. The offense was carrying the defense. Now I feel like to a certain degree, the defense is trying to carry the offense. You look at that Raiders game, this wasn't an impressive offensive performance. The defense carried you to that victory. And so I'm not sure about this Colts team right now. They don't get it done. And let's go to the momentous moment in this football game. You have an opportunity to score a touchdown. You lose this game by 4 points. You have an opportunity to score a touchdown. Kobe Fleener gets in the end zone. You have it called back and negated by a illegal shift penalty. And so that negates the touchdown. You take the 7 off, you put on a 3. That's a difference of 4 points. You lose this game by 4 points. You look at it at the end and you say, wow, those type of mistakes kill you in the long run. And it got the Indianapolis Colts in this game. And so right now, they're not good enough to overcome mistakes like that, and it came back to bite them in this game. The Dolphins are for real, folks. They go on the road 2 consecutive weeks to start the season off, win in impressive fashion, go on the road, and now they're 2-0, are the Miami Dolphins. They're finally going home for their home opener, and they got to be feeling really good about what they've been able to accomplish so early on in the season. Meanwhile, the Indianapolis Colts start off the season with 2 consecutive home games. They split them up. And so they're 1-1 now as they go into week 3. You look at the next game up on the slate, and this was a really good football game. Well played on both parts by both teams. I'm talking about the Kansas City Chiefs welcoming the Dallas Cowboys to Arrowhead Stadium. And Andy Reid knows this Cowboys team all too well, having coached against them in the NFC East for a number of years. He wanted this one bad, and his team played like it. And Alex Smith, that first possession, he ran the football. I mean, he looked like he had a flashback of him being at Utah. He was out there running around, picking up first downs, and really helping this offense matriculate the ball down the field. Look, this Kansas City Chiefs team and Alex Smith, don't ask them if they have change for $1. Don't ask them if they have change for a 20 or a 10 or a 5 or $1. Don't ask them if they have change for 50. All they have is dimes and nickels, okay? All they have is dimes and nickels. They will nickel and dime you down the field. Don't stand behind them in line at a restaurant because they're paying for everything in nickels and dimes. But it's effective because they play defense. They're not going to turn it over. They're not going to beat themselves. You're going to have to beat them. And you know what Alex Smith is bringing to the table. He's not going to take a lot of chances. He's not going to take a lot of risks. Everything is going to be short. Everything is going to be very efficient. And so you're going to have to make your own breaks because they're not going to make mistakes. And so that's what they were able to do in this game. Captain Check Down was at his finest in this game. He checked it down, found the open guy, moved the ball down the field, ate up precious time off this clock, did just enough to win in this football game. You look at it from the flip side, this Cowboys offense. And I watched the Fox post-game show, and I thought Terry Bradshaw hit it on the head. He said that the offensive coordinator in Dallas, as we all know, is Bill Callahan. He's doing the same thing he did in Oakland, and he said it drives him nuts. And he's not pushing the ball down the field. This Cowboys offense isn't balanced. That's number one. 12 rushes for DeMarco Murray isn't enough. And even though they weren't having a lot of success, 12 rushes at 25 yards, that's not good. Doesn't matter. You can't abandon the run. You have to have balance, especially in a football game like this with Kansas City where you know what you're getting. You got to be able to be balanced. They weren't balanced in this game. You look at the combinations of routes that they're running. The only guy that they're stretching the field with on this football team right now is Des Bryant. They need to stretch the field. They've got guys that can stretch the field. Terrence Williams can stretch the field. Miles Austin can stretch the field. Des Bryant can stretch the field. They have guys that can stretch the field. They need to utilize all of their assets. And they're not doing it. Everything, in the words of Terry Bradshaw, is a drag, is a 5-yard out, it's a 5-yard in, it's a comeback, it's a slant. Everything is 10 yards and in to the line of scrimmage. And I agree with him. I watched this game, and not a lot of deep shots were taken. Some of that was dictated by this Kansas City Chiefs defense that is very aggressive, very good in its nature, and has a lot of guys that are able to make plays, and they put pressure on Tony Romo in this football game. But this Cowboys offense is explosive enough and good enough to stretch the field and put more pressure on opposing defenses. And right now, they're simply not doing it. They're not doing enough. And that was evident by them only scoring 16 points in this game. They got into the red zone on a couple of occasions. They got into Chiefs territory a couple of times and weren't able to come away with touchdowns. And you can't do that in this league if you want to win. Field goals don't win games. Touchdowns do. Cowboys didn't score enough of them in this game. They lose to Kansas City 17-16. You look at the momentous moment in this game for me. You can't turn it over on the road. Cowboys had 2 turnovers in this game, and to me, none bigger than the Dunbar fumble that led to points for the Chiefs. You can't turn the football over in this league on the road and expect to win. They did that. They turned it over twice in this game, and they ultimately lose 17-16 to the Kansas City Chiefs. Big win for the Chiefs at home. They get it done against a good Cowboys football team. Cowboys will lament this loss. They had opportunities to win this game in a tough environment, did not get it done. They go to 1-1 on the season. You look at the next game on this slate, and it features the San Diego Chargers traveling to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles. This was a really good football game, very explosive, a lot of points. I didn't expect San Diego. Let me say this first. I did not expect San Diego to play this well and be this explosive offensively, but they did. And they played well, and they got it done. Phillip Rivers was poised in this game. And look, the difference between Phillip Rivers this year and last year is that he doesn't feel like he has to win the game by himself. Last year, he put it all on his shoulders, and he said, I have to be the reason we win. This year, he's not doing that. He's allowing guys around him to make plays and take some of that pressure off of him, and he's playing within the confines of the offense, and more importantly, he's playing within the game, the framework of the game. Last year, I thought he tried to play outside of his game. He tried to play outside of the time and distance and down and score. He tried to do too much, and it cost his team. This year, he's allowing guys like Eddie Royal, who already has 5 receiving touchdowns on this season, which ties a career high, and we're only in week 2. He's allowing guys like Eddie Royal, guys like Antonio Gates, and he looks really healthy. Finally, it looks like that foot is starting to heal up. He looks explosive again. He looks healthy. Vincent Brown is making plays, and before he got injured, another guy that was stepping up was Malcolm Floyd, and so he's allowing guys to help him make this offense go, and they look good against Philadelphia. You know, over 500 yards of total offense. Phillip Rivers, over 400 yards passing in this game. They played exceptionally well on the offensive side. Now, this defense has some issues. They gave up 31 last week. They give up another 30 this week. So there are some issues defensively, but they played against 2 of the better offensive teams in the league, and they hung in both of those ball games. They easily could be and should be 2-0 on the season, but they're not. But you look at it from the Eagles standpoint, before we get to the momentous moment of this game, the Eagles had this football game, and they let it slip from their grasp. And they were at home. They had all the momentum. They had everything they wanted. They were able to score points in this game. They were moving the football. This game reminded me, though, and I think last week, because of how inept the Redskins were offensively, I forgot about how bad this Eagles team is defensively. And very quickly, San Diego reminded me that this Eagles team has a long way to go defensively before they can throw their name in the hat of good teams in the NFC. They don't play defense well enough, and they probably won't this season. And they were exploited defensively. They've got some things to iron out there, but the momentous moment of the game could have cemented this football game for the Philadelphia Eagles. They kick it off after scoring a touchdown to go up in this game 27-23. They had a 15-yard personal foul penalty on Deshaun Jackson that saw them kick off from the 20 instead of the 35. So they kick it off. It's fielded by Fozzie Whitaker, who brings it out, gets some good field position on his return, gets it out to close to midfield, and then coughs it up. The ball is loose. The kicker has a chance to recover. Of course, you can't ask your kicker to do anything other than kick the football, so he doesn't recover. About 2 or 3 other Eagles have opportunities to pounce on this football. They don't. This ball, all the while, is being muffed and fumbled toward the San Diego Chargers end zone. And so the Eagles ultimately don't recover this fumble after having numerous opportunities to do so. Chargers recover, and they're already in field goal range when they recover this fumble. They ultimately go down, score a touchdown, take the lead at 30-27. Eagles go down, get a field goal, had an opportunity to score a touchdown, weren't able to do so. Vic got banged up, had to come out for a play, and they ultimately had to settle for a field goal to tie the game. Chargers go back down the field, kick a game-winning field goal with Nick Novak, win the game 33-30. In exhilarating fashion, this was a good football game, but one that the Eagles are kicking themselves because they could have won this game. They should have won this game. All they had to do was recover a fumble, and they win this game, and they could not do so. You look at the Chargers, they were explosive offensively in this game. They did all of the right things to win, and they come away with a victory on the road in a tough environment to win. They go to 1-1 on the season. Meanwhile, the Philadelphia Eagles dropped to 1-1, had an opportunity to go to 2-0 and lead this division. Cowboys lose, Redskins lose, Giants lose. They blow an opportunity to go up on everyone in this division with this loss at home to the San Diego Chargers. You look at the next game on the slate. This was a really good football game as well. The Arizona Cardinals hosted the Detroit Lions in the land of the sun, and the Arizona Cardinals are a really much improved offensive team this season. And I talked about Bruce Arians leaving Indianapolis, and he's part of the reason why they're much improved on the offensive side. But you also need to look at a quarterback, Carson Palmer, and what he's been able to bring to this Arizona Cardinals offensive attack. But this defense has always been solid. Now they have an offense that can score some points. They're going to be a dangerous group. Carson Palmer has to stop turning the football over, though. He's a guy that in both games to start this season off has thrown pick six interceptions, and easy ones at that, to the point where you don't understand where he's looking, what he's assuming is going to happen, and where he's throwing the football to. Because last week he threw an interception that almost went for a pick six down to the 2-yard line that ended up resulting in points for the Rams. This week he throws a pick six to DeAndre Levy, who runs it in, and he's unabated to the end zone, and he's got to be better. He knows better. Carson Palmer can't make those kind of mistakes. It's going to hurt his team. But in this particular game, the Arizona Cardinals hung around. They hung tough. They didn't always play the best football in this game, missed some opportunities, but they did enough when it was all said and done because they hung in this game, they played defense, and they did just enough offensively and defensively to get it done in this game. You look at the Detroit Lions, after coming off of that big win at home against Minnesota, go on the road, and Reggie Bush is banged up. He came into the game banged up, and he did not last in this football game. And that was probably one of the turning points in this game when he went out, because he's a guy that you have to account for. He's explosive. He can touch it once and take it to the house, and he's someone that can change the game with one touch. You take him out of the equation, and now all you're really trying to defense against is Calvin Johnson. You take him out of the game, and now you've got a really good chance of stifling this Detroit Lions offense. And that's what happened in this game. Calvin Johnson came up big, had 2 touchdowns. Aside from the pick six, that was all the offense the Detroit Lions had in this game. They didn't have a lot of other guys step up. Brandon Pettigrew fumbled the ball. He dropped a couple of passes. That's what he does. He's inconsistent. I said that before. And you have to have guys step up, and he's not a guy that you can count on to step up. But when it was all said and done, the Detroit Lions had an opportunity to run away with this one. They get a fumble. They force a fumble of Carson Palmer. They recover, but it is negated by a Willie Young hands to the face penalty. Cardinals get the football back, and not only do they get the football back, they drive down the field and get points. And so that changed the game. And if they were to get that fumble, they would have already been in scoring range. Who knows? If they turn that into a touchdown, this game's over. This game at that point would have been over because they would have been up by 2 scores. And I don't think the Cardinals would have been able to score. And this was in the third quarter, so they had time. But the way this game was going and the way the Cardinals were struggling to put touchdowns on the board, okay? Forget about the field goals. They were scoring field goals in this game. Jay Philly had about 3 or 4 field goals in this game. But field goals weren't going to win them this game if the Detroit Lions get that fumble and turn that into a touchdown. Because at that point, you're up double digits. Now they need 2 scores. And the way they were struggling, I don't think that they would have been able to get in the end zone and get another score to come back and win this football game. And so you look at that, and there were several other opportunities for things to be momentous moments, but that was the momentous moment in this game. Willie Young causing this team to give the football back to the Cardinals after they force a fumble and recover it deep in Cardinals territory. They take that fumble, get it back through the Cardinals, drive down the field and score points. That changed the game. You also could look at a blocked field goal later on in the game, but for me, that was the turning point in the game. Detroit Lions would have had a chance to put this thing out of reach. Instead, the Cardinals keep themselves in this game with points after they get a Maya Culpa via Willie Young. So Cardinals take this one 25-21, go to 1-1 on the season. Meanwhile, Detroit loses this game, goes to 1-1 on the season, and they could have easily have won this game. They made too many costly mistakes, did the Detroit Lions, had a field goal block, had a penalty negate a turnover. You can't do those things on the road and expect to win. They came up short, and so now they'll have to try to figure it out next week on the road against the Washington Redskins. You look at these Arizona Cardinals, big win for them. Now they go to 1-1 on the season, and they're hoping this can jumpstart their season in the right direction. You look at the next game, ugly game, ugly weather conditions, New Orleans, Tampa Bay, not a lot to talk about here. Saints get this one 16-14. Buccaneers self-destruct once again. They give up an easy touchdown to Jimmy Graham in this game. Josh Freeman was abysmal, 9 of 22. He was not finding his target time and time again in this game. Doug Martin did show up, however, in this game, and he was a saving grace for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. He kept them afloat in this game, but it wasn't enough. This Buccaneers team is very undisciplined right now. Deshaun Golson, I just learned, has been suspended by the National Football League for another hit to the helmet of a player. He got a flag against the Jets for the same thing. He hit Darren Sproles in this game with his helmet, and so now he's being suspended for a game without pay. And so that's going to be a damaging blow to a Buccaneers defense that has played really well early in this season. Well enough to be 2-0, in fact. This offense has not done enough to win football games. And you look at this Buccaneers football team, and I told you that I don't think Josh Freeman is the quarterback of the future in Tampa Bay because Greg Schiano isn't sold on him. Greg Schiano doesn't like Josh Freeman. Greg Schiano wants him out as Tampa Bay Buccaneers quarterback. And before this season is done, Mike Glennon will be your starter in Tampa Bay. Mark my words. And you look at this Tampa Bay Buccaneers team. Another double-digit penalty game. Another 100 and some odd yards in penalty yardage. You can't win in this league like this. They're undisciplined. They're not playing smart football. And it cost them the momentous moment in this game. They have an opportunity to extend this lead out and have the New Orleans Saints have to score a touchdown to win. They send their field goal kicker out, and they're missing Connor Barth right now. And that injury that he sustained in the offseason is killing the Bucs right now because they send out their field goal kicker, Ryan Lindell, and he can't connect from 47 yards. He misses, gives the Saints good field position. They go down, get the game-winning field goal, win this one 16-14, and another gut-wrenching loss for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But again, when you self-destruct, when you have 10 penalties, when you have over 100 penalty yards, you deserve to lose in any given game, and that's what they did. They lose. They go to 0-2 on the season. Saints play impressive defense once again. And again, I'm not sold because, again, this was more family business. Last week was family business against Atlanta. This week was family business against Tampa Bay. I need to see them do that against a team that they don't know like the back of their hand. And so they did play good defense once again. They get the win. They go to 2-0. This team is playing solid on both sides of the football. We'll see if they can carry that into week 3. You look at the next matchup on the slate. Denver Broncos at the New York Giants. This was Manning Bowl, probably for the final time unless these two teams meet in the Super Bowl. And so Peyton was on the road in Eli's place, and this game was close. It was 10-9 at the half. It was 17-16 in the later stages of the third. It was 24-16 going into the fourth. And then the momentous moment happened in this game. Eli Manning tries to complete a quick slant to Ruben Randall. It is broken up by Tony Carter. He deflects the ball. It is kicked off of his shoe right into the waiting arms of defender Chris Harris. Peyton Manning gets that football on the sudden change of possession. They score a touchdown. They go up by 2 scores. Minutes later, they tack on another touchdown via punt return by the speedster Trendon Holiday, and they go up by 3 touchdowns in the blink of an eye. And just like that, the Giants are out of this game. And really, that interception that was forced by Tony Carter deflecting the ball, kicking it, and picked off by Chris Harris really kind of jump-started all of this. And so that was the momentous moment for me in this game. The Denver Broncos never looked back from that point. And Eli Manning has another 4-interception game, and he's just simply turning the football over too much early on in this season. You can't win if you're not winning the turnover battle. Giants are 0 for 2 in that department. Hence, the Giants are 0-2 on the season. Giants lose this one 41-23. Denver scores 40 for the second consecutive game. They look like an offensive juggernaut. They're now 2-0 on the season. Meanwhile, the Giants are 0-2 to start this season. You move on to the next game. This was the Dust Bowl. Jacksonville at Oakland taking on the Raiders. This one is a quick breakdown. Raiders dominated the Jacksonville Jaguars. This Jaguars team is not any good. And Maurice Jones-Drew is banged up. And they don't have a lot of guys that are difference makers. Justin Blackman is out on suspension. Guys aren't stepping up. This defense hangs in and tries its hardest. But this team isn't very smart. They don't play good football. They had another one of these blunders on special teams where they punt the football. It's bouncing. They're getting gratuitous bounces towards the end zone. They've got 3 or 4 guys around the football. They could easily down this thing inside the 5-yard line, and one of their players decides, hey, I want to stop the ball at the 10. Hey, I want to stop the ball at the 12-yard line. Doesn't make any sense. This team isn't smart. This team isn't athletic. And even though they went out and made some moves to get athletically better and stronger, they went out and got Ace Sanders. They went out and got Denard Robinson. This team doesn't seem to be that much more athletic. I look at this team and they still seem slow to me. And that's disappointing because I was so excited about the amount of speed that they acquired in this offseason, but it's just not enough. You look at the momentous moment in this game, And Jags get the football. They're in scoring range inside the Raiders' 10-yard line, and they can't get in the end zone. I think they get down to about the 4-yard line, and they simply can't punch it in the end zone, have to settle for a field goal. In a game at that time where it was 7-0, a touchdown would have tied this game, gave the Jaguars a little bit of a boost. Instead, they settle for a field goal, and the Raiders take off from there. Jaguars never really get back to that point in this football game, and that was essentially it. Raiders get it done in this game. They don't beat themselves. They run the football. They don't ask a lot of Terrell Pryor in this game, but they didn't need to. They ran the football very effectively. Darren McFadden finally looked like Run DMC in this game. Well over 100 yards. He got it done. Terrell Pryor ran the football. They sprinkled in a little bit of fullback Marcel Reese, and they got it done. Did the Oakland Raiders 19-9. You look at the next game, the marquee matchup of Week 2. Sunday Night Football, San Francisco 49ers on the road at their division rivals, the Seattle Seahawks. And this was a game that was built up as two juggernauts in the NFC squaring off. And early on, that's what it looked like. Hard-hitting affair, teams going back and forth. But to me, the momentous moment happened early in this football game before we had a weather delay. And that was the interception in the red zone by Earl Thomas. 49ers are threatening early on in this football game. They get the football. They're driving down. They have an opportunity to get in the end zone. If not, they're going to get at least a field goal to start out in this game. Instead, Kaepernick reads man coverage, it's zone. He tries to fit it into Vernon Davis. And a wonderful play by Walter Thurman III. He comes over, hits the football, pops it up into the air. It caroms and wait into the waiting arms of Earl Thomas. He returns the football to about the 18-yard line or so, gets the Seattle Seahawks out of harm's way. And to me, that changed the complexion of the game. Instead of the 49ers getting on the board, settling down, getting this crowd out of it somewhat, they fuel this crowd with more energy and give the Seahawks more momentum in this game. And this game took off from there. Seahawks forced some turnovers. That was one of them. They stripped Kaepernick. He turned it over another 2 times in interceptions. They did everything in this game to win, did the Seattle Seahawks. And offensively, they did just enough. They did more than enough to supplement what this defense was doing. And this team is so hard to beat at home. CenturyLink is all but impossible to go into and win. It's going to take a special type of football team to go into CenturyLink Field and beat this Seattle Seahawks team at home. And they took care of business just like they did a season ago against these San Francisco 49ers at home. 29-3 in dominant fashion. This Seattle Seahawks team is dangerous. The way I look at it, if this team gets home field throughout in the NFC, how do they not make it to the Super Bowl? That's the question I have. If this team can just go 4-4 on the road, because as it stands right now, they're probably going to win all 8 games at home. It just seems like they're that dominant at home. And if they can do that and split on the road and go 4-4, you're talking 12-4. I don't see how that's not good enough to win their division. I find it very hard to believe that this Seattle Seahawks team won't win this division and won't be a number 1 seed with a 12-4 mark if they can do it just the way that I said. Win all 8 games at home, win 4 on the road, and go 12-4 on the season. That's a scary proposition for the rest of the NFC if these guys are at home throughout the duration of the playoffs. But after this game, they're 2-0 on the season. 49ers dropped to 1-1, and Seahawks look really impressive. This isn't indicative of the 49ers not being a good team. This is more so the Seattle Seahawks being that much better at home. So that takes us to Monday night. Pittsburgh Steelers on the road against the Cincinnati Bengals. This is a game that I see the Cincinnati Bengals winning. They're the better team. The Steelers have too many question marks. They don't have enough answers offensively. Much like the Ravens, I don't think this team is explosive enough offensively to scare the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals are at home. They're the better team. This defense is really good. The Steelers' defense is still really good. But I think that the Steelers defensively aren't forcing turnovers, and that's going to be the difference. Can you force the other team into mistakes and give your offense short fields? The Steelers played great defense a week ago. They didn't force any turnovers, though. Vice versa, you look at this Cincinnati Bengals team, they play great defense and they force turnovers, and they have an explosive offense at times. And so I think they're going to do enough in this game to win. I don't expect it to be a high-flying, high-scoring affair. It's family business. These teams know each other very well. I expect them to play a lot of defense and have this be a closer game than many might expect it to be. But when it's all said and done, I see the Cincinnati Bengals coming out on top in this game, 20-13. And that's going to do it for this episode. It's been long, arduous, but that's week 2 in a nutshell. So I'll see you back here tomorrow when we'll break down the Monday night affair and clean up any other business from week 2. And check out Pro Football Central Weekly as it airs tomorrow as well. If it happens in the National Football League, whether big or small, we cover it all here in the lab room. Have a good one. See you tomorrow. Like the content? Want more? Sub up.
In the lab room.